Well, hello humanity. It's January 1974 and American author and professor Isaac Asimov has just published his latest work. In it, he describes two possible outcomes for the future of our species in light of the oncoming advancements of science and technology, and claims them to be the means by which a utopia might be produced here on Earth. But let's jump forward 42 years back to January 2016 and compare how our perception of the future has changed today. As discussed in previous videos, the advent of the social media age, improvements in living standards, and increased global connectivity thanks to more efficient transport and communication has pushed our society together towards greater tolerance, understanding, and social integration. We could still be facing a number of potentially catastrophic developments well within the next 100 years, but for today, we'll focus on a single possible outcome for our civilization that Asimov often coined in his works such as the Foundation Trilogy or Nightfall, and that is Utopia. The idea that our society may one day be able to achieve a utopic level of order is usually met with a great deal of skepticism. This is perhaps only because utopias are difficult to define. So what is the measure of a utopia, and how can we define it over time? Quite simply, there is no linear or logarithmic scale which we can use to assess the civilization's progress towards such an outcome. As with much of human history, it's easier to take discrete snapshots of our progression over large periods of time to see how we've evolved. To the Mesopotamians, our civilization today might seem flawless or indefatigable in comparison to their socio-economic or technological standing. Nevertheless, we still seek to define a utopia as an outcome instead of a steady, ever-increasing progression. To gain a further reaching understanding of the evolution of civilizations, we should look to the Kardashev Scale. Coined 10 years before Asimov's aforementioned novels by Russian astrophysicist Nikolai Kardashev, the scale establishes 5 types of civilization based on its technological advancement and output of energy. The theory asserts that as a civilization grows larger and becomes more advanced, its energy demands will increase rapidly due to its population growth and the power requirements of various machines. Within fiction, utopic societies such as the United Federation of Planets and Ivan Efremov's Great Circle collectively represent unity, tolerance, and acceptance for all humans and other species. The means by which each of these organisations achieved status within the galaxy was not without considerable struggle. Taking the Star Trek universe as an example, humanity had to face a Third World War with a death toll of around 600 million people before forming a world government of all nations for the future prosperity of mankind. This event is vaguely reminiscent of the Great Filters, coined with reference to the Fermi Paradox. The Great Filter problem attempts to answer why sufficiently advanced civilizations, such as our own, are all but non-existent in the rest of the galaxy. If we're to assume that a cataclysmic event, such as a world war, wipes out all life here on Earth, then such a Great Filter would still be ahead of us. If, however, the Great Filter entails one particular evolutionary process, such as the change from simple prokaryotic to complex eukaryotic life, then the Great Filter is already behind us. Another equally humbling hypothesis is that we're the final species within the galaxy, or perhaps the known universe, to evolve towards intelligent life through natural selection, and that the age of galactic empires and advanced civilizations within the cosmos has already long since passed. Asimov warned that our existence at this point in space-time places us in a unique position to understand the universe in its current and former state, but at the same time could well be occluding us from a larger viewpoint of the cosmos, from which obvious answers to some of our most fundamental big questions are apparent. In a similar sense, our current place in history here on Earth often obscures our perspectives towards the future and our potential for bettering ourselves as a civilization from any mistakes we may have made in the past. For now though, we're going to assume the former, that a great filter still lies ahead of us, and that eventually humanity may one day encounter an intelligent civilization elsewhere in the universe. According to author Michael Marder, our species is likely to be facing a war of resources within the next 100 years. Distributing Earth's resources equally and evenly across the planet's billions of citizens is already a difficult challenge. Yet if population sizes were to scale upward rapidly, this could lead to vast conflicts over food and land. Overcoming this issue is not only a staple for the rise of science fiction utopias such as the United Federation of Planets, but it's also a notable characteristic for becoming a Type 1 civilization. It's still unclear whether our society within its current state can collectively achieve this utopic goal without the extermination of millions of people, but if we should manage to circumvent this particular global filter, we would need to remain vigilant to ensure another equally catastrophic event is not waiting for us further down the line. Let's jump forward again to January 2150. What would a utopic society that had already overcome a great filter on its progression towards this state look like at this point in time? As we've explored, Utopia itself is in fact better viewed as a contrast between 2 points in the history of a civilization, rather than a single ultimate outcome. It is perhaps not a point at which all of our societal and technological problems are solved, where all of its citizens are identical, but instead one in which we've resolved the majority of socio-economic setbacks, such as inequality, greed, famine, and injustice, and where there may be a framework in place to ensure that all citizens are equal in their potential, irrespective of their social class and the resources available to them. Therefore, we could expect to find a civilization very similar to our own, but perhaps with a more even and fair distribution of the population across the globe, making better and more sustainable use of continents such as Africa, and seeing first world infrastructure and cities rise to support existing populations, as well as those who may have chosen to immigrate there from other developed countries. To paraphrase Robert Brownstein, within such a utopia, from our perspective in the 21st century, we may see the improvement upon laws and relationships that typify the dynamics of nature and the interactions between man and environment, in essence depicting a world that puts humanity at less of a contrast with the planet it is trying to exist upon, and one in which the starting point for any person's existence stems from one of equal opportunities. This raises a particularly pressing question though. Is there an ultimate form of society or culmination of people and technology that will one day form a perfect state for all of humanity? The Greek etymology of the word utopia stems from two words, not place. In essence, an idealised or imagined place or point in time in which things may not be real, but in which everyone can no longer be improved upon. This is somewhat different from our contiguous understanding of utopia so far, and in fact has more in common with another similar term, extropia. Extropianism is a philosophical pseudo-futurist belief system which already exists in the 21st century, and which categorically states that its values are dependent upon the continuous improvement of the human condition over time. Unlike utopia, extropianism bases itself upon being measurable, and instead of identifying as a single end goal, tracks itself through this list of actionable changes. In essence, a charter from which all of its core principles, values, and future decisions are centered around. Using Google's Ngram viewer, we can see that over the past 20 years, extropy and extropianism has become a commonly accepted term used to discuss progressive beliefs, policies, and technologies. While the term may draw upon trends from countercultures such as futurism and modernism, it's entirely unique in its approach to technology, welcoming optimistic discussion around computational advancement, nanotechnology, cryonics, and mind-body detachment. This is in part thanks to Dr. Max Moore, who, in 1987, founded the Extropy Institute to discuss transhumanist topics. Understandably, the principles of extropy work conversely to that of entropy, and claims that human technology and the will for civilization to continue to thrive will give rise to an ever-evolving framework that will allow us to prosper over the coming centuries. Dr. Kevin Kelly of Wired magazine goes on to state that extropy is neither wave, nor particle, nor pure energy. It's a non-material force that's very much like information, and since extropy is defined as negative entropy, the reversal of disorder, it is, by definition, an increase in order towards a point. It's important to distinguish at this point that extropy is not a physical law written into the foundation of the universe, unlike entropy, and that it is instead a human concept. Digital probabilistic physics goes on to expand on this point, and helps to further differentiate the two with this quadratic equation, which simply outlines extropy as probabilistic information, and entropy as a physical measure of order. But what does this mean for humanity? Well, while some concepts proposed by extropy seem dubious in their ability to be achieved, adopting other subsets such as techno-Gaianism and nanogenetics could be ultimately beneficial for everyone. If human civilization were to adopt extropy and one day reach a technological state which allowed us to break free from the thermodynamic laws of the universe, then it's possible to imagine a species solely dependent upon their own energy, existing for a limitless amount of time, and possibly achieving a state of utopia by its original definition. Such a civilization would rank about a 4 or 5 on the Kardashev Scale, and from our perspective of the universe would appear deistic. Science fiction touches upon these species occasionally, though it's currently hard to conceive of such a state of being, as it's so dissimilar from our own. Let's jump forward to February 16 sextillion and 1 CE. There is one particular setback which even a type 4 or 5 civilization would still be susceptible to. Whilst mankind may be sitting comfortably in the middle of the Stelliferous era, the universe's existence is finite by all our current predictions. Whether through Big Crunch, freeze or rip, eventually our cosmos will come to an end by which no life, no structure and no order will be present at any level. The fabric of space and time itself may no longer continue to expand, putting a halt to the plans of any non-corporeal beings too. At this point, such a civilization will need to escape the confines of this universe and either find residence in another, or resign themselves to an eventual demise within our own dying cosmos, gradually tending towards a state in which no further energy releases are possible. Such an end will be all too apparently dystopic for this video, so we'll cover that more in part 2. It may be difficult to conceive of any kind of utopia for our species, considering the challenges that we currently face due to political, economic, or environmental tensions here on Earth. However, our current cosmic perspective is still narrow, and whilst we don't know of any other civilizations in the rest of the universe who may have achieved a utopic status, it's still our responsibility to ensure that we set an example for any up-and-coming ones. It may be a while before we come across any Type 4 or 5 civilizations who are able to set an example for us, so for the time being, we'll just have to take the words of Sir Arthur Eddington and accept that somewhere out there, something unknown is doing we don't know what.